Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Nasr, and this is the Cleveland C# user group. A little bit about the group. We meet every month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and as well as all expertise levels, whether you're a hobbyist, a student, or a working professional. We cover a variety of topics related to .NET, and you can find the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. As always, a big thank you to our sponsors, the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website, and NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. Some general information if you're joining us for the first time. The key thing is participation is always encouraged. As I always say, the only stupid question is the one not being asked. So feel free to chime in with a question or a comment. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we want to keep it casual but organized, so don't necessarily wait for a pause from the speaker to be able to ask a question, but rather feel free to either raise your hand virtually or enter it into the chat window, or maybe even jump in verbally. And the presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube right after the editing process, which should take about 2 to 3 days afterwards. So for tonight's presentation, it's the good, bad, and ugly of AI, and it is done by yours truly. And a little bit about me. My name is Sam Nasr, and you can find me on Twitter at Sam Nasr. I've been a software developer since 1995, and I'm a senior software engineer as well as trainer for NIS Technologies. I've been certified with a few certifications from Microsoft and still continue to add to that list. And in addition, I also run the Cleveland C# user group, i.e. this group, as well as the Azure Cleveland user group. I'm also a technical author and a 7-time Microsoft MVP. With regards to the user groups in Cleveland, there are 2 user groups that I run. Both of them meet every month, and they are free of charge and open to the public. For the Azure Cleveland user group, you can find us on meetup.com, as well as with the Cleveland C# user group, also on meetup.com, with the links listed at the bottom of the slide. So, some expectations for tonight's presentation. Essentially, the whole goal is to raise awareness. And we're going to look at AI, we're going to look at the good side of it, the bad, and the ugly, as the title hints. Unfortunately, there are no code demos. It's basically going to be a discussion and exposing some things, some stories you may not have heard of, and maybe some that you did hear of. And at the end, we want to have a discussion of Q&A of how impactful all these various things are going to be in our industry. So for starters, let's start with the good. So what I'd like to do, first of all, is I'm going to be sharing a couple of videos. However, sometimes don't get through with the audio. So what I'd like to do is share it in the chat window. There are 3 videos that we'll be going through. And what I would like to do is first start with video number 1. And in case you don't hear the audio, feel free to run the clip on your end. And so with that, let's start with video number 1.
Thank you so much, Cornelia. So hopefully you get a feel for the richness of these intelligent services that you can use. And now it is up to each of us as developers to imagine what's possible. Imagine what Boeing can do to the business applications in the aerospace industry. What Case Western Reserve can do to medical education. What NASA can do for space exploration. What a fast food restaurant can do for order taking through a drive-through using Chris. What a news organization can do to be able to interpret all text, all images, all videos on a social media stream in real time. And one developer truly inspired me this last year, very close to home for us at Microsoft. I want to see what he dreamt of. Roll the video.
I'm Second Shake. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind. And that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do, but artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before, and in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
For me, it's such a privilege to have a chance to share the stage with Saqib. And, you know, Saqib took his passion, his empathy, and is going to change the world. And to me, that's what it's all about. He's here, in fact, at Build to network, inspire other developers, learn himself on how to take his applications and make them better. But more importantly, he's also here to teach. He's got a couple of sessions that he's going to do as well. And to me, that's what makes these developer conferences magical. It is about being able to take our passions, our empathy, and go after the opportunities that we see, go after the dreams that we have. And what Saqib has done has been a real inspiration for me. And we as developers have this tremendous opportunity and a tremendous responsibility. Because not only do we get to dream of the future, we get to build the future. I can't wait to see what you dream up and what you build. Thank you so very, very much. Have a fantastic build. Thank you.
So I thought this video was very inspirational for me. It basically, it showed what AI can do. And it's not so much the cool things, but it's more of actually improving people's lives. And going along those lines, it also improved the lives of developers. So as things have evolved, we now have GitHub Copilot, which I'm sure many of you have used to various degrees. And as we see here, there's a sample where essentially you're entering in a comment of what you want the Copilot to generate for you, and it provides the code snippets. In addition, from my personal experience, when I first started using it, I was a little spooked out because it pretty much read my mind of where I wanted to go. I would name a method appropriately, such as get summary. And as I start to type, it's actually filling in all the variables and instantiating the classes for me. And I was kind of blown away by it. Um, so first, GitHub Copilot was introduced in 2021, but then as things have evolved, we now have Copilot everywhere, literally. And as you see in this wheel of Copilot, as I call it, we now have it not just or only for developer tools like Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, but we also have it available in the operating system. We have it available in the cloud. We have it available for Office, data and AI. Countless and essentially all applications now have their own flavor of Copilot to help you along building that application that you're in within that framework. Wanted to pause for a second and see if there's any questions, and so far we're good. And then as things continue to evolve, we now have copilot.microsoft.com, which essentially is a search engine on steroids, where you now ask it a question and it can come back with an answer. And so in preparation for this talk, I posted on Twitter and I said, if you have any stories that relate to the advantages or disadvantages of AI, let me know. And a friend of mine who lives in North Carolina replied back and he said, I have a neighbor, and after I told him and gave him a brief intro to ChatGPT, he went home and had it redesign his 200-foot backyard, and it gave him the plants for the area and the soil, where to place them, and it gave him a list of the various plants to actually purchase and plant. So, with ChatGPT, it's essentially built on the same platform as Copilot, using the similar models. And so I did the same thing with Copilot, asking about deer-resistant plants in Zone 6, where I'm at. And sure enough, it provided a list right from the get-go. And so now it's becoming more useful, and it's penetrating almost every aspect of life. But more specifically, what other advantages does AI provide us? Well, if we look at things like this, where we have the growing role of AI, utilizing the machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence, it can recognize subtle changes in seismic activity and then warn people earlier to evacuate. So in the case of a hurricane, as we see here off the coast of the Carolinas and Florida, we now have an AI that can monitor the trends and then provide an early warning before a disaster like that would take place. So it can also be used in areas where there's outbreaks of violence. So it's by examining social media activities and economic trends. It can also warn of upcoming riots and other violent acts. So it's giving us a heads up and protecting people. Now, another video that I want to share with you, and this is video number 2. So let me preface the video before I start it, where this is a gentleman from I believe, the Royal Air Force. And as he gotten into his older years, he suffered from Parkinson's disease. Those of you that are not familiar with Parkinson's, it essentially causes a lot of tremors, and it attacks the central nervous system. So a patient can no longer do this by aiming his finger or keeping a steady hand, but rather it is gyrating back and forth. And so they utilize AI and machine learning algorithms to essentially cancel out this gyration and basically make it more stable. Think of it like noise cancellation headphones, except this is for the central nervous system. So let's give it a listen. This is video number 2 that I posted in the chat window, but you should be able to hear the audio coming through.
With your stimulators off, I just want to mark what your tremor is like. Okay, you happy for that to go ahead? Right then, with your right hand, if you possibly can, touch your nose, touch my finger. Okay, and the real test. Do you think you could pick that up for me? Okay. Should we switch it on? Okay. Right.
That's it.
Does that feel better?
That feels good.
Should we try and do these assessments again? With this hand only, and with your right index finger, touch your nose, touch my finger. Okay, you're right. Good. Right. Yeah. You try picking that cup up for me with your right hand. Well done.
That is amazing. That is an amazing change. Even just drink is great. That deserves a round of applause.
All right. So this always hits me hard because I have a relative of mine that does have Parkinson's, and it causes a lot of muscle tension in the body and a lot of constant aches and pains. The best way I can describe it, by seeing my relative go through this, basically it's the feeling of having run a marathon, except that feeling stays with you constantly unless you're on some type of a prescription medication, a narcotic to be specific. So when you saw the gentleman, when he took a breath as soon as they turned it on, um, that was no exaggeration. It was basically immediate relief from all the muscle strain that he's been feeling. And now he's also able to have control over his hand and be able to have better manipulation of his extremities. So once again, we see an example of AI changing lives for the better. Now, now that we've seen all the various good things, let's dive into the not so good and get into the bad. And we're gonna slowly work up into the bad and the ugly. So one small minor bad point. But before I get into that, this is one of my favorite quotes from Henry Ford. And he said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Obviously, Henry Ford is known for the providing the automobile, and he didn't invent it, but rather he facilitated the assembly line that made it much more available. So there was a shift there from people that use the horse and buggy. Now we're using a gasoline-powered engine to get around. So why do I have this listed as a bad thing? Anyone want to take a stab at it? And if not, I'll happily jump in. Basically, the reason why it's not such a great thing, but rather a bad thing, is because it's an uphill battle for people like us, for developers. We now have an uphill battle to convince management and customers of a new technology that can make things easier, better, quicker, and cheaper. But they're still stuck in the horse and buggy type of mentality. No, I don't want you to use Copilot to write code. I don't know what implications that's going to have. I need you to sit down and write everything from A to Z. I don't want to use it in my Office 365 application. I want to hand enter everything in myself. So it's a change in thinking and the dynamics of how we do business and interact with the various business departments. Another key aspect that we tend to overlook, a lot of times some people will get so dependent on Copilot that it's just enter in a question, cut and paste, and then run the code. So this is what I call the new Stack Overflow, so to speak, where in the past we've had a problem, we cut and paste that error, paste it into Stack Overflow, and then we look at the various forums, scan all the way down to the check mark. Okay, perfect. Cut, paste into my code, and run it. right? And obviously, we were cognizant of the fact that we should be doing some testing, but now there are some people that are just whatever Copilot says, go with it. It's gospel. And as you see highlighted here in red, Copilot may make mistakes. By interacting with Copilot, you agree to the terms of use. Many times I've entered in, as we see on the right-hand side of the slide, I needed some sample code. So for example, this is for accessing the DeepSeek model. And I would enter in what I wanted to do, and it would provide some code back. The problem is when I went to run that, it didn't work all the time. And this is more pertinent to newer technology that's being introduced, because the model for Copilot, as well as ChatGPT and all the other AI models, they have not been trained or have been updated sufficiently on newer technology. So DeepSeek was a model that was recently released, but then there's also other technologies that are also constantly being released. And if we fully rely on that, we're not always going to be getting an accurate answer. Another thing, coding interviews. So a lot of times in the places where we work, before we hire someone on, we tend to put them through a coding interview, give them a sample problem, fizz buzz, or be able to calculate or extract all the prime numbers from 1 to 100. Little code snippets like that we need them to write to demonstrate their proficiency. Naturally, if you give someone a laptop and you kind of let them do their thing, or if they're doing it from home, they can utilize Copilot and essentially cheat their way into it. So coding interviews can then be faked. And it's a useful tool, but it could be used in a negative way. A more negative thing is using AI models for generating fake images. So as we see here with Prince Harry, as well as Emmanuel Macron and the Pope himself, these are all images of events that never happened. The Pope never spoke to a crowd this big. Emmanuel Macron was never in front of a riot like this. And then Prince William and Prince Harry, they never really had that pose where they were crying in each other's arms. So these are all things that were fabricated, all thanks to AI models. The big downside of this is that it helps to perpetuate negativity. It helps to deliver fake news. And obviously, human nature is that we tend to propagate fake news, or bad news, I should say, when we hear it. So for example, with Emmanuel Macron, someone who loves to read negative news, when they see this image, they're not going to think twice about it. They're going to start sending it to their friends and helping spread the word of all the bad things that are happening in France, when in reality, it didn't happen. Continuing on, so this is for the next clip will be on video number 3. This one is a little bit lengthy. It's about 7 minutes. And you should have the link for it in the chat window. And let's go ahead and start that.
Today you and tomorrow you aren't the same person. If you're tired of what Today You is doing, get an Accounting Fundamentals Certificate from WGU School of Business and get a whole new Tomorrow You in just 6 months. Enroll today at WGU.
Let's play a game. I'm going to show you 2 videos. One is real, one is altered by AI. Can you spot the deep fake? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recommended one of these books. Which one?
The book that I got excited about reading through. It's called This Can't Be Happening in Macdonald Hall. It's called How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom.
Yeah, it was the last one. The Prime Minister never said that. Okay, round 2.
If you can see, I hope to finish this talk show one day.
Will the fake Morgan Freeman please stand up?
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real.
How about these videos of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? Did the presidential hopeful say this?
I'm the only one that could possibly compete with Donald Trump.
Or this?
I took some very bad advice. I did some very bad things.
The last one is fake, made to make you think that DeSantis was dropping out of the race. Look at the mouth, out of sync to the voice.
I never should have challenged President Trump.
One giveaway to a deepfake. for now. From Hollywood to Washington to Ottawa, deepfakes are confusing reality.
With AI, fraudsters can take 3-second recording of your voice. I've watched one of me on a couple times. I said, when the hell did I say that?
Spend enough time scrolling, like me, you start questioning everything on your screen. How do I know that you're not a deepfake?
That's the right question, isn't it?
Honey Fareed specializes in digital forensics at the University of California, Berkeley.
If you're trying to create a 10-second hot mic of the Prime Minister saying something inappropriate, that'll take me 2 minutes to do. And very little money and very little effort and very little skill.
Okay, so a video of a politician swearing or dancing won't set off national security alarms.
President Trump is a total and complete dip.
But as AI technology gets better and more believable, Fareed worries about populations primed for manipulation.
What concerns me a great deal in this country in particular is how partisan we are. And when you have that kind of deep partisanship, that outright hatred of the other side, not just disagreement, the disinformation campaigns are much more effective because they will take hold because everybody's already there.
Here's something you might have seen before on your social media feed.
On artificial intelligence.
A deepfake of the Nationals and Hannah Mansing that seems to be selling cryptocurrency.
More than 765.
It's a scam. He never recorded that. It's made with AI. Okay, but what if during the next election you see multiple videos that look and sound like a journalist you trust telling you the date of the election has changed? Would you believe it? I think that's really scary when you think about it.
That, 12 hours before election day, goes supernova viral. It doesn't matter if you correct the record 12 hours later. The damage has been done.
It's that threat to democracy that rattles this conservative MP.
Politicians have large digital footprints. You know, I have over a decade worth of speeches that are on the internet, writing, videos. It'd be very easy for somebody to put together a deepfake video of me.
Worried that Parliament isn't moving fast enough, Michelle Rempel-Garner helped set up a nonpartisan working group to tackle AI.
We haven't even dealt with telephone scams as a country, right? Like, we really haven't dealt with, like, beta version phone scams. And now here we are with very sophisticated technology that anybody can access and come up with very realistic videos, like indecipher or indistinguishable between the real thing and what's been produced. The question really is Canada ready to deal with this? Like, these are not conversations that are happening front and center in Parliament right now, and that is concerning.
Not far from Parliament, the worst case scenario is top of mind. Canada's cyber spies are already sounding the alarm about our first AI election. Carolyn Xavier is the chief of the Communications Security Establishment, or CSE, the sister agency to CSIS.
This is what we fear, is potentially that there could be a foreign interference so grave that then the electoral results are brought into question.
Simply put, is Canada ready for its deepfake election?
There's lots of work we continue to need to do with regards to education and, citizenship literacy. But do I think we, CSC, is ready? The Cyber Center? Absolutely, I think we're ready, because this is what we train for. This is what we get ready for. This is why we develop our people. We anticipate the worst. I'm hoping it will happen, but we're ready.
Ready to help allies like the U.S. with their election this year. When it comes to our election, CSE has the power to knock dangerous content offline. But even then, it doesn't have a magic bullet to kill deepfakes.
The reality of it is, yes, it would be great to say that there's this one tool that's going to help us decipher the deepfake. We're not there yet, and I don't know that that's the focus we should have. Our focus should truly be in creating professional skepticism of the stories that are out there so that we can have critical thinking happening every time we're looking at the news or we're looking at the information that is at our disposal.
So how do you do that? Remember the game I played with you earlier? Okay, so let's play this game. Well, Scott DeYoung created a board game to fight disinformation. I'm the good person, and you're trying to spread conspiracy theories?
I'm the conspiracy theorist.
Okay. His research at Montreal's Concordia University is teaching people how online echo chambers and conspiracy theories work. He says deepfakes are designed to get us when we're most vulnerable.
when we're scrolling on social media, we don't want to have our brains on. We're tired. We're not actually engaging with content. We're just kind of mindlessly scrolling, maybe laughing and sharing something with our friends. And that's not a time when we're going to do those steps of like, okay, we're going to stop, we're going to pause, we're going to reflect.
Can we actually teach people not to fall for fake content?
I would love to say yes. Like, we can teach people the skills to recognize when content is misleading. My actual advice for people during these kind of election times is to try to watch things live, because it's a lot harder to see the deep fakes or the false content when you're watching the live version.
With the year of elections upon us, including maybe candidates, experts say the best strategy is to act now. Or come election day, we might all lose.
All right. So I'm curious. What do you think of what you just saw? Would love to hear your opinion, either in chat, verbally. Anyone? All right. Seems like.
Well, how good is AI getting now? I mean.
Well, from what we had just seen, seems to be pretty good. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but could they I guess it's a dumb question to ask, but could they realistically bridge the gap they're talking about with it looking 100% like it's you saying those things, or?
I'll pose that question to the rest of the group. What do you all think of Daniel's question? Can we bridge that gap?
I think that this mirrors a lot of what's going on in other media. Except for in printed form or in smaller chunks. This is
Your mic is cutting out here and there.
sorry. It's a way to get people's attention in a different way that might be a little bit more easy for them to ingest. So from that standpoint, it can be a little more dangerous because you don't have to use as much effort to find out what you're viewing.
So I agree with you. My take on it is that when we saw the video with Ron DeSantis, as developers, we're trained to look at the minute details, right? When I'm writing a line of code, I'm checking to see that I have a semicolon at the end. So we have an eye for detail. But someone else, let's say, who doesn't quite have that eye, if they work in any other profession, not to pick on any specific profession, but if they don't have an eye for detail and they see DeSantis saying what he said, they're not going to necessarily look at the mouth movements and try to see that, yes, it's in sync. It may not stand out to them, especially the older generation, right? They see something like that. If it's spoken on TV, it has to be true. So, but eventually I think we're going to bridge that gap as far as, well, it's going to bridge it in the sense that it's going to make a fake video look much more realistic because we're going to develop better models as time goes on.
To go along with that, for regular pictures for generation, there's the AIs that generate the pictures, and then there's other AIs that determine if it's a fake or not. So I guess there's the same potential for this media as well with video. You can have an AI look at it to see if it thinks it's real or not as well.
But then let me play the devil's advocate. How accurate are those models in determining whether something is fake or not?
Well, you're going to have to go and talk to another devil that knows the actual numbers, because I know here I believe in Minneapolis, in one of the companies, they actually do that kind of work. There's one company that does the generation and another one that they send out to determine if it's fake or not.
Right, and I agree with you, but what I'm saying is there's going to be a degree of inaccuracy. I mean, anything that exists is not always 100% accurate. There's always going to be some degree of inaccuracy.
Yep, even in nature that's true.
I'm sorry?
Even in nature that's true for things that you wouldn't normally think of.
That's true too, right. Okay. All right, let me cover a few more slides, but great conversations and great input. I appreciate it. So moving right along. Now, getting into the ugly. So, first of all, some ugly concerns. First, bias and discrimination. So we've heard it before where AI could, depending on how a model is trained, it can unintentionally perpetuate biases present in their training data. So, for example, if I am feeding it in a bunch of resumes and I am not, or I'm looking at a certain subset of the population and not including the entire population, then that's essentially building a bias into the training data. So this could lead to unfair treatment or discrimination against certain groups. So for example, if I'm looking for a software developer and all I'm feeding it are resumes for white males between 25 and 30, then anyone outside of that um, classification would be disregarded as a potential candidate, right? So if I'm a 35-year-old male, whether white, black, or Hispanic, it's immediately going to disregard me because I don't fall into that category. Another issue is privacy concerns. So AI and machine models are trained on data, lots of data, and as developers, if we don't scrub that data properly, meaning let's say we're training it on data and we don't remove social security numbers or personally identifiable information, that can also lead to privacy concerns by exploiting that someone's private information. Another thing is job displacement, and I've been hearing this even growing up. When ATM machines were first introduced, oh, they're going to shut down banks, and there's going to be no more retail banking, no more. And then later on came the e-commerce movement, where now we can actually buy things off the internet. Well, does that mean that shopping malls are going to shut down? There's going to be no more brick and mortar, and then Amazon came on the scene, and then it perpetuated that thought even more. But we'll discuss it more later. But this is still the fear: is that now that AI can do a certain task, especially as a developer, is my job still going to be in use? I mean, essentially, all someone has to do is go into Copilot, enter in whatever code snippet they want or whatever application they want developed, hit enter, and boom, there's the answer. So is my job at risk? So that's another concern that comes about. And like what we talked about in the last video, misinformation, where you can have AI tools that develop deep fakes, the videos, the images, and then this can perpetuate a lot of fake news. And same thing with weaponization, where in some cases you can use AI technologies what can be exploited for military purposes or raising concerns about autonomous weaponry. To say that we're now going to have our country patrolled by AI robots, that's a concern for some people, obviously, if they buy into it. And then lack of transparency, where we don't know how this works, right? A lot of cases, it's a black box that we're dealing with, whether it's Copilot or a DALL-E model. We're essentially entering in a prompt, and then we're getting stuff back. And then it's up to us to decide whether that is right or wrong. But essentially, it's a black box that we're dealing with. So there's the lack of transparency of how it came about to that result. And then last but certainly not least is dependence and dehumanization, where basically we're over-relying on AI, so that way we're diminishing the human creativity. Perfect example is there are AI models that not only can generate code, but they can also generate stories and be able to create images. So now I no longer have to refine my artistic skills. I can just go over into AI and say, give me an image of a dancing fuzzy bunny, for example. I no longer have to sit down and draw one, but rather it'll generate one for me right off the bat. So it's removing the critical thinking and the ability to fine-tune a specific skill that I have, and I'm removing that from myself. by the use of AI. And then getting into even uglier concerns, this is probably the ugliest of them all. So in 2018, the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro, there was an assassination attempt done on his life. And if you look at the picture in the left side, you'll see that the lady standing next to him, she's kind of ducking for cover, and the other gentlemen around him are looking up in the sky. What had happened there was, as he was standing in the podium delivering the speech, there was a drone that flew nearby, and basically it had a Raspberry Pi device on it, mounted with a camera, and of course it had onboard explosives. And then, utilizing facial detection, it came close to him, and then it detonated. Thankfully, he survived, but unfortunately, as we see in the other pictures, there were some injuries, significant injuries, and then another drone went out into the crowd and detonated, and then there we see people running for cover, essentially causing a mass stampede with the entire crowd. So basically, this is about the ugliest that it can get, and if you think about it, what was needed for something like this to happen? We already said a drone, explosives, facial recognition, and then probably a cell connection to the cloud if he wasn't able to onboard the entire model onto the drone. But essentially, all these technologies exist today, and it's just a matter of falling into the wrong hands where it could be used for something that could be fatal. So, after seeing everything that we talked about so far for the past hour or so, do you see AI as a friend or a foe? I would love to hear your feedback. It's a 50-50 chance, so you can't go wrong. You see it as a friend or as a foe? Go ahead, Chris.
I would definitely say I see it as a friend. However, like with everything out there, it all depends on the person who's behind using it. If they have bad intentions, they can really use anything as a weapon, and AI, I don't think is any different. However, I think that the good aspects, when used properly, like the how they're discovering the new combinations of protein folding and how that's helping, like the Parkinson's video that you showed. I think that there's a lot more good that can be done. But again, you kind of hope that most people are moral and have good intentions when they use it. You're always going to have a subset of the bad, but I consider AI a friend. Heck, I even have on the front of my portfolio website, my profile picture is literally built from AI, and it's really, really good. It's probably the best picture I've ever seen of myself. And even when you zoom in, you can't even tell. Now I'm sure that there's, you can put it through an AI detector, but I really enjoy using AI, and it's benefited me in multiple ways, personally and professionally. But it can definitely be a foe too.
Absolutely. And thanks for your feedback. I would love to hear from others that haven't chimed in. Again, the whole point of this meeting is to have a discussion and some give and take. So feel free to come off of mute or enter your thoughts into chat. Any takers?
Hi, this is Olivia. I think that it's a good mix. As far as I think that there's definitely a lot of good that can be had, but I think that there's a lot of potential negativity. And I think that there needs to be some reining in of that somehow. I don't I don't know how that can happen, because I don't think that laws move fast enough for what AI is capable of doing. So I think that we're in a conundrum when it comes to AI overall. But I think that it does come down to the morality aspect, what it comes down to is whose hands is it in?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And one of the things about that I love about Microsoft, as well as several other vendors, is even though the technology is there, they don't allow everyone access to it. Meaning, when I started using OpenAI through Azure, you had to fill out an application. What is it that you're looking to do? And even
Right.
then, they only made certain services available, but other services, you need to go through a more, I wouldn't say rigorous, but an additional form and some additional reviews. For example, facial recognition, speech recognition. Is the voice speaking? Is it Sam's or is it Olivia's? Right. So that service is going to be more under scrutiny before it's provided to any particular user. So that's a great gatekeeper, if you will, for preventing wrongful doing. So they prevent that service from being available to falling into the wrong hands.
Well, I definitely see it as a friend for now, I guess, because it has a lot more beneficial uses than it does harmful uses. Like maybe this is just my bias, but right now the harmful uses, aside from the stuff we just saw, are stuff we can see through at least. The deep fake videos. I mean, I am worried about the future with that, but I don't know how long it's going to take before that becomes an issue for real, like the deep fake stuff or, you know, AI generated content. It seems like maybe I'm just on social media too much, but it seems like even normies can differentiate social AI content from regular content a lot.
Oh, I can
And
tell you they cannot. They cannot.
oh,
Absolutely,
okay.
they cannot.
Well, okay. Well, I'm not on social media that much. There's a difference. Wait, are you on Facebook a lot or Twitter? Because I think on the Facebook is more geared towards older people. At least that's what they tell me. I'm not on Facebook at all, but I hear Facebook users fall for those memes a lot more. They fall for a lot of fake news a lot more.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm not on
essentially,
Twitter, but I am on Facebook and Blue Sky and a bunch of other, Discord and things like
Oh,
that.
well, Blue Sky is the
Telegram,
same.
and I will tell you that there are a lot of deep fakes that people fall for left and right.
Ooh.
And like satire that says it's satire, people will send it out as if it's real. And I mean, it says in the copy, it says it's satire, and people will say this is real, and it's not. Like it's maddening.
I think it also comes
Yeah,
down to that sometimes you believe what you want to believe without questioning it.
Yes,
And unfortunately, some
it's
people are like,
whatever is feeding the narrative that they want to hear is what is working. So that's the thing, is that if this deep fake says what they want to have happen, then they are believing it hook, line, and sinker. It doesn't matter if it looks fake, they want it to be real.
yeah, confirmation bias is choking us all out nowadays.
Absolutely. So
It is
that's
just
a big
stomping.
problem today, and it's very rampant all over the place.
yeah, some great
Yeah.
discussions. Thank you all for your feedback. I wanted to go on to the next question, which is on everyone's mind. Will AI replace software developers? Thoughts? Let's hear from those that we haven't heard from. Chris, Alex, Alan?
I think you may have some AI replacing some bad programmers, and I think you may have some good programmers that utilize it to their advantage to help speed things up.
Agreed. So I also heard the quote from one of the Microsoft executives. He said, AI won't replace your job. However, you won't be able to have a job unless you know AI, is how he phrased it. And I think in the sense that where certainly we've gotten into the habit of cutting and pasting code. I am equally as guilty. But at the same time, I think it takes a lot of know-how to know that what you're pasting in will work or not, and the expected results. So it's not just a blind copy and paste. It's a matter of making it work with your current code and making sure that you get the desired results out of it.
When they say that they're looking for developers or people that know AI, that's a really broad brush statement. So do you know what kind of scope they're talking about on that?
You know, that I would have to defer to the person that published that job ad, quite honestly. But at least some familiarity with Copilot, which isn't really a whole lot of learning that needs to go there. I mean, if you can type in a prompt and a question, essentially you're using Copilot, so it's not that difficult.
That's what I'm thinking, and so it kind of depends on how deep you go down the AI rabbit hole as far as what they really mean, and they're not really qualifying their statements. So,
and GitHub Copilot, essentially, as you're typing things in, it's automatically typing ahead of you, and the code is grayed out. But if you accept it, you just hit tab, and everything is pasted in for you. So, not a whole lot of learning curve there. Daniel, you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like you mentioned earlier, it's Stack Overflow 2.0 or 3.0, basically.
Right.
I mean, there was a point way before AI, there was a point where if you didn't go to Stack Overflow with your question, like well, what are you even doing? Because Stack Overflow was so widely accepted as at least a good launch pad for your, for your query. And
Totally agree.
AI is going to be the same thing in a couple years if it's not already. It's just a faster Stack Overflow. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't grow crazy, but maybe this is another of my uninformed opinions. It feels like AI is going to, the whole bubble of AI, I should say, where we're doing everything AI and AI is going to replace it. I think that's going to just settle down over the next year or so because AI is great and it's getting better, but it can't really replace programmers, and people are going to see that as they try, for lack of a better, as they try to replace programmers, they're going to see, yeah, it can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that, Daniel. 100%. I think it's going to be a tool for developers to use, just like Stack Overflow. I agree with that.
Most definitely. And then the last question that kind of ties in with the first is, which is more dangerous, a knife or an apple? And that's, are you seeing AI as a friend or as a foe? What I'm trying to get at with this question is not everything immediately comes across as good or bad just by the item itself. It all depends on how you use it. So, for example, a knife is considered, an image of violence for most people, right? But if you think about it, how can we feed ourselves if we didn't have a cutting tool of some kind? If we, back in the caveman days, they hunted down a buffalo, you can't eat the whole buffalo at once. You got to cut it up in pieces. And even with vegetables, you can't eat an entire head of broccoli at once. You need to cut it up in pieces. So it's a tool that can be used for our benefit. Likewise, something that looks as innocent as an apple could also be deceptive or could be deadly in the case of a poisonous apple, for example, right? So not everything is as it seems right off the from the get-go. I think we have to look into it a little bit further, and that was my whole point of that question. But I wanted to end things on a more of a humorous note, and so I found this meme, which I thought was pretty funny, actually. We've all seen the captchas that say "check here" to indicate you're not a robot, and then the meme says, "The biggest joke on mankind is that computers have started asking humans to prove they aren't a robot." I thought that was a pretty interesting thought. It's amazing how things have made full circle, but just the way of the world, I guess. Um, So I wanted to ask you before we wrap it up, do you have any questions, any comments? What have you learned here today that you picked up before you came in? Or I'm sorry, that you picked up during the meeting that you didn't know beforehand? Anybody? Nobody? All
I'm
right.
always eating an apple. I didn't think everybody else would stay silent. Okay. I do have a question.
Sure, please.
As a programmer who works with AI a lot, what is your what is your line with code? What is your line between using the code it suggests to you and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to use it for that."
So whenever you utilize Copilot, whether GitHub Copilot or copilot.microsoft.com or any other code generator for that matter, the code that's generated is essentially yours, right? Meaning that you don't have any copyright laws that you're infringing upon by using that code. But at the same time, as the developer, I take responsibility for having that code in the application. I need to be able to understand what each portion of that statement is doing, what each call is doing. I can't just cut and paste blindly and, well, okay, the end result is what I expected. I'm done. Hands off. It was GitHub that generated it, not me. No, just as it is, that code is mine, where there is no licensing issues. Likewise, when I hand that code over to my client and I check it in, I need to take responsibility for knowing how it's going to function and that it won't cause any harm and that there's nothing malicious in it.
I
You
asked
also
that
have to be
question
able to
wrong.
troubleshoot it.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I asked that question wrong. I meant, what is your personal boundary with, okay, what would you use AI for and what would you not use AI for when it comes to generating code? Like, do you only limit it to functions where you're reasonably sure what has to happen and you're just making AI do it for you so you don't have to type it all yourself, or are you asking it bigger things like stuff you might not know off the top of your head?
I mean, there are some things where I ask it to explain like a snippet of code or a particular method call if I don't know what it does.
Okay.
Let's say
Okay.
like let's say the question mark period, the null coalescence operator. If I don't know what that does, I can just simply type in a sample code and say, explain this to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
Olivia, you had something to say?
Oh, I was just commenting on the fact that you also have to be able to troubleshoot it when something goes wrong. If you don't know something that you've copy pasted, if you don't know how it works, you're in big trouble if something goes wrong.
Exactly right. Yeah, you need to be able to explain it. Why did you do that? And God forbid that should anything go wrong, you need to be able to answer up to it. Very true.
Exactly.
Yep.
I've seen many people fall into that trap. So,
Yeah. It cannot be a hands-off, well, GitHub told me to do it, so it's not my fault. No. You got to take full
exactly.
responsibility for it.
Yeah,
Right.
just going back to it, just like when it was Stack Overflow. Like if something might as well have been magic to you, it's gonna turn you into a toad later. You can bet on it.
Exactly.
Exactly. You need to know how it works. You can't just copy paste anything from Stack Overflow, from Copilot, from wherever, and just, magically say, hey, this is great, and, not know how it works and then put it into production, because guaranteed that is what is going to cause problems down the line. And then you are not going to know how to fix it.
I'll even go a step further. You can't just cut and paste your colleague's code, from a different method that they utilized. You can't just cut and paste their code either into yours. You're responsible for every keyboard stroke that you're putting in. So it's not just the Copilot or AI issue. It's more of any code you enter in.
Right.
All right, very good. Great discussions, folks. So if you're interested in having a AI responsibility and ethics course, we do offer that with NIS Technologies. Feel free to check out our website for either consulting or training. And then in addition, you have my links for all my socials. They're available through Linktree. And there's also a few links that I wanted to share with you as well. If you give me 1 second. So looking over in the chat window, I am pasting a few links, and we'll go through those right now. So the link for the YouTube channel, that is youtube.com at Sam Nasr MVP. And please subscribe to that to get the upload notifications whenever the videos are edited and uploaded. In addition, tech events, which we'll cover in just a little bit, those are also going to be posted on my blog. And again, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to that to stay up to date. And then last but not least is a link for the feedback eval form. If you would please take a moment to fill that out. I'm always open to constructive criticism, so don't hold back. I just want your honest feedback. So please take a moment to fill that out. With regards to tech events, allow me to share my screen. So I just came across this today. They have an AI Agents Hackathon that's going to be going on the course of 4 weeks, April 8th through the 30th, with a variety of different events. As you see highlighted here in week 1, they have it in a variety of different languages, Python, Java, C#, various topics relating to agents. And again, it spans 4 weeks all the way through the end of April. It's free of charge. However, if you do end up winning in any of these categories, there is a cash prize that's involved. So more of an incentive to join. Also, Cleveland will be hosting the Global AI Bootcamp 2025. That's going to be happening on Friday, April 11th. It's going to be an all-day virtual, a variety of different topics related to AI and machine learning, free of charge and open to the public like all other community events. And the link for that will be available once you register on the website. And let me post the link for that into the chat window. And I will also have that on my blog. So there's the link for the boot camp. Again, free of charge, so I strongly urge you to register for it. And then last but not least, and certainly not free, is Stir Trek. That's going to be happening in Columbus, Ohio. And if you have never attended Stir Trek before or don't know what it is, they basically host an all-day conference, 64 sessions to be exact, in a theater in Columbus. And then at the end of the day, they have a private viewing of Marvel's Thunderbolts for all the attendees. Popcorn is provided free of charge. It's a really cool event, actually. Great for networking and also learning new topics. So the cost for that, if you click over on the register here, it will take you over to get tickets. And the cost for that is $250 with an $11 registration fee. And that's going to be happening on May 2nd. And the link for that is, again, stirtrek.com. Lastly, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email, snasr@nistechnologies.com. In addition, all my links, LinkedIn, Twitter, email, you name it, can all be found on Linktree/Sam Nasr. And if we're not connected on my favorite platform, LinkedIn, let's do so. So you can find me there. And I'm always quick to reply to messages, whether it's email or LinkedIn direct messages. So should any questions come up later, feel free to hit me up. I look forward to continuing our chat, continuing our discussion. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. And with that, thank you all for attending. I appreciate the great feedback that we had and the great dialogue. And look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you, everyone.